What is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going over my early offseason late round sleepers for the 2022 fantasy football season, as well as for your 2022 best ball fantasy football drafts. But before we could get into today's video, I would like to ask that if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you leave a like on today's video. It would help us out a ton. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Notorious FNTSY. So without further ado, let's go in depth into my top 5 sleepers right now for the 2022 fantasy football season, as well as for your best ball draft. So we will begin with Darnell Mooney, wide receiver of the Chicago Bears. His current ADP on Underdog is pick 95.4 overall, and he is coming off the board as wide receiver number 32. In 2021, for the Bears, Mooney played in 17 games, finishing as the wide receiver 24.5 PPR and the wide receiver number 32 in half PPR points per game. The biggest reason as to why there is a discrepancy for a lot of players in their regular finish on the season, wide receiver 24, compared to their points per game finish, wide receiver 32, is the amount of games they play. Typically, there are wide receivers that play really fucking well, but they end up only playing 12 or 13 games, and they have a not-so-hot overall finish on the year, but in the points per game category, they are fantastic. With Darnell Mooney, it's the opposite. Since he played in 17 games, he finishes as the wide receiver number 24, but on a game-to-game basis, he didn't really retain that value, as he was the wide receiver number 32 in half PPR points per game, and I personally believe that he will be able to get that points per game number closer to the wide receiver number 24 this season. Last year, he had 140 targets, 8.2 per game, number 11 at wide receiver, 81 receptions, 4.8 per game, number 18 at wide receiver, 1,055 receiving yards, 62.1 per game, number 17 at wide receiver, and 5 total touchdowns, 33rd at the wide receiver position. So looking back at last season, the Chicago Bears were an unmitigated fucking disaster. Justin Fields, when he was playing, was pretty solid, but you could tell that that wasn't necessarily the same Justin Fields that you remember back in college. It wasn't the same. And is that because Justin Fields just fell off the edge of the earth? In my opinion, no. It's because the head coach of the team, Matt Nagy, is a certified idiot. And the offense was not working as well as it would have with basically any other coach not named Urban Meyer, right? The offense, the defense, both were not good at all last year. They drafted Justin Fields for a reason, and that's for him to be the quarterback one on the team. Now, do I believe that Justin Fields is going to take this tremendous leap in 2021 and elevate to superstardom as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL and in fantasy football? Probably not. But I do think that with a new head coach there, without Matt Nagy, that he is going to help elevate this team up to be better. Allen Robinson is now gone from Chicago and is now an LA Ram. Now, was Allen Robinson much of a deterrent to Darnell Mooney potentially having a humongous year in 2021? No, because for some reason, Allen Robinson was on his John Cena shit and you couldn't see him. He was like Houdini. He was invisible for the Chicago Bears offense. So Darnell Mooney did step up and play as that wide receiver one on the team, and in my opinion, he did quite well. Now we are getting in 2022, a full year of Darnell Mooney being the locked and loaded wide receiver number 1 on the team. Now, could they draft someone? Could they trade for someone? Definitely. They definitely could do either of those two. But even if that is the case, and they say draft someone who slots in as the number 1 wide receiver on the team, then in my opinion, even as the wide receiver 2 on the Chicago Bears, Darnell Mooney could have a shit ton of value. Now, like I said with Justin Fields, I don't expect him to make some crazy leap to superstardom to be great. But I think with Matt Eberflus, who I don't expect to take the Bears just like Justin Fields, I don't expect Eberflus to make the Bears like a top 5 team in the NFL, not even a top 5 team in the NFC, but I think he is going to help out this team as a whole much better than Matt Nagy did. And I think if Darnell Mooney is slotted in as that number 1 wide receiver spot, which is what it looks like right now, then Darnell Mooney could have a much better season than last year. And if you guys remember, there was points in the season, especially as we got deeper on into the season, where Darnell Mooney was a very fantasy relevant player. He was one of the bigger names in fantasy football later on in the year. So I do definitely believe that Darnell Mooney possesses possesses the skill set to be a top 12 wide receiver, I'm not going to rank him that high. There's a reason why he's getting drafted at pick 95 and not pick number 30, because there's definitely some risk in him, as well as the Chicago Bears team. But at the end of the day, when you are taking a later shot, wide receiver 32, there's already been 31 other wide receivers off the board. Why not take this shot on a guy who is probably the wide receiver 1 on the team? There are wide receivers getting taken ahead of Darnell Mooney right now that are the second option on their team. So why not get the number 1? I understand the Bears are far from this pristine organization as of right now, but I do think Darnell Mooney could put up close to wide receiver 24 numbers again, and as long as he has a better points per game number, which I think will be the case with a full year of Justin Fields, I think Darnell Mooney is destined to have a fantastic season. Next up, we move to another wide receiver, and that is going to be Adam Thielen of the Minnesota Vikings, ADP 102.2 overall, and currently coming off the board as the wide receiver number 35. In 2021, Thielen played in 13 games, finishing as the wide receiver 28.5 PPR, but Adam Thielen was the opposite of Darnell Mooney, right? He didn't have that so hot of a overall finish. Again, wide receiver 28.5 PPR, but he was the wide receiver number 14 in half PPR points per game, tied with Tyler Lockett and Keenan Allen. Now, obviously, Adam Thielen has been knocked down a peg with how fucking good Justin Fields is. And I'm not going to argue that Justin Fields isn't fantastic, right? But you can still have Justin Jefferson have a fantastic season while Adam Thielen also overachieves over the ADP of wide receiver 35. To me, the fact that he's wide receiver number 35 is disrespectful when you look at what happened last season. Again, 13 games played. He had 95 targets, 7.3 per game, 37th at wide receiver, 67 receptions, 5.2 per game, 31st at wide receiver, 726 receiving yards, 55.8 per game, 41st at wide receiver, and Adam Thielen, while only playing 13 games, had 10 total touchdowns. With those 10 total touchdowns, he was tied with Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs as the 10th most touchdowns at the wide receiver position. So Adam Thielen, despite only playing in 13 games, scored the same amount of touchdowns as Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs, who played in more games. Now, is Adam Thielen going to recertify himself as the alpha wide receiver, the number 1 guy in the Vikings? No, that is not going to happen. But what is going to happen is that Adam Thielen is still going to be a very viable wide receiver on this Vikings offense and is going to continue to be a focal piece in this offense. Now, he might not even be the number 2 most important player on the team, right? They have Justin Jefferson and they have Dalvin Cook offensively. But Adam Thielen is still there. And going at wide receiver number 35, when he finished as wide receiver 28 last year playing in just 13 games and was the wide receiver 14 in points per game, that is fucking ridiculous. That is ridiculous. People are heavily taking a nap. They are in REM sleep right now on Adam Thielen. They just are. We've seen Adam Thielen do it before. We've seen him be fantastic. We have seen 2 players on the exact same team, 2 wide receivers, finish inside the top 12 before. So it shouldn't be a shock. It shouldn't come out of nowhere if Adam Thielen finishes inside the top 12. Now again, these players are sleepers for a reason. I'm not going to just be crazy and rank Adam Thielen as a top 12 wide receiver. But in my opinion, you shouldn't be surprised when he finishes as wide receiver 12. Maybe that's a little ambitious. Don't be surprised if he's wide receiver 18. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was the case. And I think wide receiver number 35 is drastically undervaluing the player that Adam Thielen is. And based upon where he is going, I think he is going to be a smash draft pick in all of my drafts. If his ADP doesn't shift now, ADP could shift right now. I'm recording this video today. It's April 19th. So by August, when maybe you're doing your fantasy football draft late August, maybe people start to come around and think, wow, we were fucking wrong on Adam Thielen. Why is ADP so low? But maybe that won't happen. Maybe people will be like, this old fuck, Justin Jefferson is there, Kirk Cousins is his quarterback, and then they'll push him to the side. Don't push Adam Thielen to the side. I really do believe he still has the upside to be a top 12 wide receiver, and he's going off the board as wide receiver number 35. So why not take that shot. But before we could get on into the next player that I consider to be an early offseason late round sleeper, I'd like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at Underdog Fantasy. They've been on your screen this whole video. Our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, is known for their NFL best ball tournaments. However, Underdog doesn't stop there. Underdog has plenty of other contests for you to compete in, including live draft contests and pick'ems in which you can net up to 20 times your entry fee. Use promo code Awesemo, AWESEMO. Again, promo code Awesemo on your screen and get a first match deposit bonus of up to $100. Get started on Underdog Fantasy today. You can also click the link in the video description, and you don't even have to type in the promo code. It just automatically imports that for you. So back on into the video. Make sure you guys do check out Underdog. I do play on there. My video from yesterday was me doing a draft on there. So Rashaad Penny with 2 A's, running back of the Seattle Seahawks, ADP 107.7, overall running back number 31 off of the board, is my next late round sleeper. In 2021, he played in 10 games, finishing as the running back 36.5 PPR and the running back 23.5 PPR points per game. He had 119 carries, 11.9 per game, ranking 43rd at running back, 749 rushing yards, 74.9 per game, ranking 25th at running back, 8 targets, 6 receptions, 48 receiving yards, and 6 total touchdowns. So from those stats, you could tell Rashaad Penny is far from Alvin Kamara, Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, Christian McCaffrey, any running back that you want to name, those aren't all of them, that can catch passes, right? 8 targets, 6 receptions in 10 games, pretty shit, right? But what Rashaad Penny can do is make up for that on the ground by rushing the ball with aggression and rushing the ball well. Now, if you guys have been watching my videos for a while, you know that basically every single year, since I've been doing this, since 2019, I have told you guys to full fade Rashaad Penny because it seems like every single year, everyone gets down on their knees and gives Rashaad Penny the gawk 9,000 because of the amount of upside that he has, that he will eventually surpass Chris Carson, and he's going to be the starter on the team, despite the fact that he was always getting hurt. And I kept telling people, no, he is a waste of a pick. But last year, I was wrong. Now, how wrong was I? Not 100%, right? Because he didn't play the whole season. He wasn't a key piece in this offense all the time. But once Chris Carson did get hurt, Rashaad Penny was clearly valuable to this offense and was used as the lead back, deservingly so, because he played fantastic when he was the lead back. So I don't want to overhammer in the fact of his numbers from his career prior to last year because he didn't really do shit at the NFL level besides last season. But what I do want you to know is while I am one of the biggest Chris Carson truthers, I recognize that Chris Carson also deals with significant injury issues, and at running back 31, where you are picking Rashaad Penny, pick 107, when there is a good chance that he could be the lead running back on the team. Now, obviously, the draft hasn't happened. The draft is next Thursday. Maybe things change in Seattle. Maybe they go fucking crazy and draft a running back super early, and then he surpasses Rashaad Penny. Maybe. Or maybe they bring in another running back. Maybe they just bring in Melvin Gordon, because why not, right? Maybe they just screw you over. But at the end of the day, based upon the rosters that we have right now, you shouldn't be surprised in the slightest if Rashaad Penny was the running back one on Seattle. Now, is the Seattle situation as good as it was last year? No. They lose Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson was kind of keeping this team afloat. Now, Russell Wilson was banged up last year, but the team isn't fantastic, but Russell Wilson was able to make them not awful. And now they have what seems like horsecock Drew Lock as the starting quarterback. Maybe it'll be Baker Mayfield. Either way, definitely a huge downgrade from Russell Wilson. But even with that said, if he is the lead back on the team, I'm going to take him every time. Every time when you see him there at pick 107. Every time. Because it just makes sense. You can get so much value out of him drafting him there. Now, am I sold in that he is going to be the starter week 1? No, it could be Chris Carson. And maybe if Chris Carson's value just is plummeting, right? He's going even later in drafts. Maybe he's going to pick like 150. Then I'm also going to take the shot on Chris Carson if I don't pick Penny. Because I think that there is just as good of a chance that Carson pays off. I just think based upon what we've seen recently, even when Carson was healthy last year, in my book, based upon what I was doing while I was watching with my eyes, I think Penny looked like the better running back. Next player to talk about as a late round sleeper is going to be Dawson. Knox one time, if you are with me, of the no one circles the wagons, like the Buffalo Bills, ADP 113.6, overall tight end number 9. Now, I did talk about Dawson Knox inside of my tight ends video as one of my must-draft tight ends, so I won't go super long on Dawson Knox here, but I do think he deserves a spot in today's video because I really like where he's going. In 2021, Dawson Knox played in 15 games, finishing as the tight end 8.5 PPR and the tight end number 8.5 PPR points per game, having 71 targets, 4.7 per game, ranking 20th at tight end, 49 receptions, 3.3 per game, 18th at tight end, 587 receiving yards, 39.1 per game, 15th at tight end. But where all of the value came for Dawson Knox was in the touchdown category, 9 total touchdowns, second at tight end. Now, some might say, Nick, the fact that his value was carried by the touchdowns means that he's probably not going to finish as high in 2022. Because there's a solid chance that he doesn't end up with 9 touchdowns. Sure, you can have that thought process, but they also got rid of Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley. There is still a lot of room, a lot of carved out targets for Dawson Knox on this team. Now, do I think that Dawson Knox is magically going to go from 71 targets to 100? Probably not. Probably not. But could he go from 71 to 80? 71 to 85? Potentially. He is still a key piece in this offense and is vital on the red zone attack. Josh Allen is still very much his quarterback. This is still going to be a team that is excellent in the AFC. Are they a Super Bowl contender? Yes. Are they a lock to make the Super Bowl? No. No one is in the AFC. The AFC is loaded. But with that said, Dawson Knox is still a key piece in one of the best offenses in the NFL, with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and now there are less players contending for the targets, so there could be even more room for a higher target share in this offense outside of the red zone for Dawson Knox. I understand they bring in another tight end, they bring in O.J. Howard, and that might make people shit themselves a little bit. They may get a little bit nervous. In my book, there's no need to get nervous about O.J. Howard. There's maybe reason to get worried about another OJ if you're in Buffalo. He might hit you with the 1-2 stabberoo, but OJ Howard is no worry for me when it comes to Dawson Knox. I like Dawson Knox a ton in 2022. Am I saying he's a lock to be a top 5 tight end? No, but again, definitely would not be surprised if he finished that high on the season. This is a great team. He's a great tight end. He came out of nowhere, though, because prior to this year, it seemed like Josh Allen had no idea what a tight end was, but last year, he clearly figured that out. So, final player to discuss in today's video is running back, formerly of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, now of the Kansas City Chiefs, running back Ronald Jones, ADP wide receiver, 130 overall, running back 37. Ronald Jones and CEH are going back-to-back Michael Jordan 96-97, right now based upon Underdog ADP. CEH is going one running back slot ahead of him, so he's running back 36 compared to Jones' 37. I have seen absolutely nothing that is going to point to the fact that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is this locked and loaded running back 1 on their team. I don't think so. I don't think that it's very clear that he is just this echelon above Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Or Clyde Edwards-Helaire is just this upper echelon above Ronald Jones, I should say. I think they brought in Ronald Jones for a reason. Their running backs there in Kansas City were small. They had a very small running back core. Ronald Jones is not Derrick Henry, but he's also not Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's much bigger. And I think the change from Tampa Bay to Kansas City, where he could be this big mauler back on this team, where he could be scoring, especially in a best ball format, there's going to be weeks, in my opinion, where Ronald Jones finishes inside of the top 12 because he scores maybe 2 touchdowns. Now, there's going to be debate about, what's going to happen to the Kansas City Chiefs. They lose Tyreek Hill, blah, blah, blah. People are going to say all this stupid shit about how Patrick Mahomes is fried. He's finished without Tyreek Hill, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of stupid narratives on the internet about football. There just is. It's what gets the clicks. It's what gets the clickety-clacks on the screen. But my belief is that the Chiefs are going to be just fine. Maybe they're not as good without Tyreek Hill. Maybe they're the exact same. Maybe they are. Maybe they're just as good. Maybe they're better. Maybe they're better. Who fucking knows? But what I do know is that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not that guy. He is not the guy for the Kansas City Chiefs. Could he finish ahead of Ronald Jones? 100%. 100%. But if I'm late in my draft, I'm taking the shot on Ronald Jones because I think they brought him in for a reason to have a different back than what they had on the team, and they are going to use him to pound the rock down defenses' throats. Last year in Tampa, running back 59 in half PPR, running back 73 in half PPR points per game. He had 101 carries, 6.3 per game, ranking 49th at running back, 428 rushing yards, 26.8 per game, I apologize. 49th at running back, 13 targets, 0.8 per game, 10 receptions, 0.6 per game, 64 receiving yards, and he had 4 total touchdowns. So not a great season out of Mr. Ronald Jones. Yet again, Leonard Fournette this year in 2021, Leonard Fournette was the clear number 1 running back in 2020. It was more up in the air, right? There were some weeks where it's Ronald Jones. Then the next week, even though Bruce Arians is on the podium with his microphone, pretends it's a microphone, he's saying, hey, we saw how well Ronald played today. We're going Ronald next week. And then next week comes, and Leonard Fournette's pounding the rock. This is 2020. But then 2021, it seemed like Ronald Jones just lost the job completely. Leonard Fournette was the guy. Again, is Ronald Jones going to be overwhelmingly the guy here? No, he's not. I don't think he's going to run away with the job in Kansas City, but I do think that he's going to be seeing enough work in this offense that he is valuable for fantasy football, especially on such an elite offense like the Kansas City Chiefs. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure you hit that like button as well as that subscribe button down below. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Notorious, FNTSY. Please make sure to check out our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, promo code AWE. SEMO for up to a $100 first match deposit bonus. Get on started on Underdog Fantasy today. I love you guys all so much. You click the link in the description as well. Have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, goodbye.